Welcome to the last day of July, July 31st, 2020. Well, here we are leaving July, heading into August on the downhill side of summer now, believe it or not. Well, it's going to be hot west of the divide, more moderate east of the divide. It really depends on where you're listening and watching this podcast. If you're on the western slopes of Colorado, Wyoming, back into Utah, into Idaho, into Nevada, eastern Oregon, you're going to be hot. East of the Continental Divide, you're going to be cooler. In addition to that, what we're also going to be looking at is a little bit of shower and thunderstorm activity over near the mountains. So generally speaking, depending on where you are, either temperatures are going to be pretty nice or they're going to be pretty hot. And if you're headed to the mountains, that's where you're going to likely find thunderstorms, although we'll see some thunderstorms on the plains later in the weekend. Dry conditions west of the divide through early next week. Then monsoon moisture does come back late next week and next weekend. But right now, the door to the monsoon moisture flow has been shut. It's been closed, but it opens up mid to late next week. So some western slope areas will get back into some thunderstorm chances. We'll have more solar fun. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens sometimes during solar minimums that isn't what you would expect. Now, first of all, let's take a look at where we are with the jet stream right now. We've got this broad trough over the west coast, rather off the west coast of British Columbia, building this high in here. Now, this is a lot of dipsy-doos for this time of year, really. A lot of amplification. This is going to center the high pressure ridge right over Nevada and Utah. This is why it's going to be so hot right here this weekend. But look at the northerly flow where the trough is digging in the Midwest. This area right here, this area of low pressure, is the same system that was up here earlier in the week that has now moved through. So this is going to cause quite a bit of shower and thunderstorm activity in the Midwest. And here's what may end up being hurricane going up just along and near the East Coast over the next few days. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Now, as we take a look, though, what you see here is desert air gets moved into here, but air from the northwest gets moved into here. That's why west of the divide, it's going to be hot. East of the divide, we'll give it a P. It's going to be pleasant temperature-wise this weekend. This is what the output of precipitation looks like through Monday. Notice the green and the grays are really near the mountains and along and east of the divide. So we're going to see showers and thunderstorms. Here's the Black Hills. Here's the Bighorns. Here's Yellowstone Park and the Wind Rivers. Here's the Colorado Mountains, the southern mountains of Wyoming, even the Uintas. So if you're going to be venturing into the mountains this weekend, your typical afternoon thunderstorm in the mountains is going to be around and along the divide. East of the divide, there's going to be some afternoon showers and thunderstorms, especially Sunday and Monday. Sunday and Monday, we'll see some activity right here with thunderstorm activity. But as you can see, west of the divide, very, very hot and dry through the weekend here. As we look at the jet stream as it changes, this is Wednesday. So for the weekend, the high's here. By Wednesday, the high shifts here. So you start to get that moisture coming back up as you look at the moisture flow coming on up. That's why the second half of next week, monsoon moisture starts to make a comeback. Now, by next Thursday and Friday, the high migrates a little bit more to the east. That's why we're going to have a resurgence. That trough off the west coast also directs more monsoon moisture back into here. Notice that the high doesn't bulge up as much. The jet stream is kind of beating it down a little bit, and we're seeing a pretty active northerly jet stream for this early in August, something that may play a role later on. Taking a look at temperatures over the next week, this really highlights what the divide does. West of the divide, it is going to be hot. Great Basin in the interior west. East of the Continental Divide, the coolness. So there's really a contrast for what side of the divide you're on. These are temperatures for August, folks. This is the first week of August. That is not hot at all for the eastern slopes of the Rockies and the Plain States to start August. No dogs days of summer here yet. Now let's take a look at some solar ideas. Now, right now we told you we had two sunspots. This is showing a pickup in the activity. And both of these sunspots right now, while they're pretty small, an indication that the solar minimum is bottoming out. What's interesting is during solar minimums, you can still have big solar flares. You can still have solar storms. In fact, some of the biggest solar storms, biggest outbreaks where electrical grids are disturbed, where you get big outbreaks of aurora borealis, well, there have been times historically during really strong minimums, like the one we're having now, you can have solar flares and you can have some solar storm activity. And this is from spaceweather.com. One interesting thing, a paper just came out that shows the solar minimum of 1903, which is similar to the solar minimum we've got here right now. There was a big solar outbreak, big solar storm that caused aurora borealis to go very far south, and I'll show you a map of that. Also, for those of you who remember 1989, if you go back to 1989, for those of you that live in the Intermountain West, in March 1989, you could see the aurora borealis all the way down into New Mexico. It put on a big show across Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. And that happened, guess what? Right at a solar minimum in 1989. So you can have a very inactive sun. You could have low sunspot activity, but you can also have big solar storms. And if you go back and look historically, they tend to happen or happen frequently at these minimums. And from 1903, that shows you how far south the aurora borealis was seen. Look how far south in latitude that happens, and look how far south big outbreaks of the aurora happened during that solar outbreak. So even though the sun is still in a slumber, it's getting out of it, keep your eyes on the skies. We might have some auroras to look at before this year is over. Thanks for listening and watching the Day Weather Podcast. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.